Diminishing returns is an important principle when training for sports performance, or if you have goals outside of the weight room, or I guess even if your goals are just getting better at the exercises you're performing. The principle of diminishing returns just states that as an athlete nears their genetic potential, the gains in performance will be much harder to obtain. Corey Schlesinger just put it pretty eloquently on the Coach 'em Up podcast not too long ago.
Skill comes at high velocity. Sprinting, jumping, change of direction. Why do I need to do that with a barbell?
Well, if you bring the force up, then the velocity also.
If you're weak as piss. Like, I've been fortunate to be around some NFL players. Force isn't the issue.
Not at all.
We're trying to expand their bandwidth of athleticism, problem solving, and reactivity, which is the game. You know, like, I see that crazy heavy back squats. That's in spite of. That's just like good on them. That's awesome. But when I'm fighting for change plates, I cut it out. We're there. That is the strength that you need. Let's find strength in a new way.
And what Corey says here is true. There's absolutely nothing to disagree with. Corey is awesome, by the way. I recommend everyone go follow him if you don't already. But I think it can be really easy to forget about diminishing returns when training for things other than maximal strength training. I follow a ton of strength and conditioning content on Instagram, as I'm sure many of my audience does too. I haven't once seen anyone mention the principle of diminishing returns regarding speed training or jump training or anything else for that matter. Diminishing returns says that the more adapted you become to one stimulus, the less adaptability you gain from that same stimulus. The more that you improve, the more energy and resources you must spend to continue to improve. And this is just always framed in the lens of strength training. Once you're strong enough, strength training becomes less important. But the same principle applies to every other mode of training. Just like if you're fighting for change plates on the bar, which is what Corey Schlesinger said, if you're fighting to shave off 3/100ths of a second of your fly 10, the less value that improvement will provide. I recently put this meme out on Instagram. You'll commonly see coaches, especially coaches who distance themselves from the title of strength and conditioning coach, say something to this effect. That improving your squat from 405 to 425 doesn't actually mean you gained any usable strength for sports. It just means you got more skillful in the lift, and this is a very common sentiment. Getting your squat from 405 to 425 is a 3% improvement. Many coaches would argue that an athlete is strong enough if they can squat 405. I would even agree with that statement depending on the athlete and various other factors. But surely if you can reach a level of strength that is considered strong enough, then you definitely can reach a level of speed that is fast enough. Just like with strength, you can get to a point where you're pretty damn close to your ceiling of speed. In order to see a 3% improvement in speed, say dropping your fly 10 from a 1.05 to a 1.02, it would require more energy and resources that could take away from all the other training and practice that is important for sports performance. One point of pushback that I actually would accept to what I'm saying here is that while athletes actually sprint in their sports, they don't squat. Sprinting is an actual task that athletes perform. This is absolutely true, but the principle still applies. But I also think you're going to reach the point of diminishing returns in speed training quicker than you do in strength training. You can add weight to the bar and keep getting stronger for years and decades with just basic strength training without specialization. This isn't necessarily the case for speed. Once you can be considered fast enough, squeezing out an extra bit of improvement in speed training is a lot harder than in strength training. But I suppose in order for us to test this, we would all have to take a poll or something and agree on what is strong enough and what is fast enough. I think the main point of what I'm trying to say here is that if you're implementing all of these things in your training, which you probably should be, just recognize that diminishing returns applies to all of them. If somebody is strong enough and you want to question whether or not it's worth it for them to keep gaining a little bit of extra strength, you can probably do the same thing with speed. Because when participating in sports, all of these qualities, speed, strength, power, still have to be applied within its appropriate context. And in my opinion, the purpose of training is to keep driving up all of these general qualities, not really worrying about the context within the sport. That's what you do the sport for. So that's my little rant on diminishing returns. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.